Now, as part of steps to deal with an increase in the price of aviation fuel, local airlines yesterday requested authority to levy a new fuel tax of between, 25% and 40% on consumers. The operators, who are reportedly being hard hit by the rising cost of fuel and operations, claim that the new surcharge is necessary for their survival, even if it will soon have an impact on the already high cost of flying. Nigeria's domestic carrier Aero Contractors on Monday said limited supply of Jet A1, also known as aviation fuel, was disrupting its flight operations in the country. Well, joining me to take a look at developments in the aviation sector, we have EMEKA UGWU, an economist, a former banker and social entrepreneur, and Chris ALIGBE, an aviation expert. Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us on the Arise interview. Let me start with you, Chris. I mean, you are the main player in the aviation sector. What exactly is happening to Nigeria's aviation sector? I mean, I read somewhere that Nigeria's aviation sector is dying gradually. Is that the case?
It's facing a very serious challenge. And if somebody says it's dying gradually, that person is not making any mistake. That's exactly what we in the industry, we are seeing, and we are very worried about.
You're worried about it, but it's not enough to just worry about it. What exactly are the key issues? Why is Nigeria's aviation sector in trouble?
So many reasons. First and foremost, the sector doesn't appear to be getting the right support it should get from the government in an economic environment we find ourselves in, with the naira sliding down and the foreign exchange not really available. The airline industry is dense with foreign exchange in terms of expenditure. The spares they have to buy for the aircraft, when an aircraft is down, when you have what we call aircraft on ground, AOG, and they need to fix it up. The engines they have to maintain and pay for. Some of them go up to, in terms of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. Sometimes you have to get an engine up to $3 million, depending on what kind of engine you are looking at. Foreign exchange is not available to the airlines, and they cannot keep the operations on without that being available. And the authorities don't seem to appreciate that this is a very major problem for the industry. I see interventions in other areas, but I've never seen any serious intervention in the airline subsector. I do know that the aviation minister has made this great effort. Unfortunately, it is not in his hand. I've always said, between the Ministry of Finance and Central Bank, somebody should come out and take charge of this situation. They should not wait on the airline collapses, the airline subsector collapses entirely. Because if they wait, it will be difficult to pull them up again. So this is the time to come in and act. All of us are seeing it. The industry is going down. The operators are trying their best. They don't have forex. Fuel scarcity is there. Even when it is not there, the cost is increasing daily. What is the profit level in the airline industry? It is between 2% and 5%. Between 2% and 5%. And when you find all that is required to run the industry, growing in terms of percentage, the rising percentage, going up to 10%, 20, almost 100%. Look at aviation fuel from 400 and something naira now to almost 800 naira per liter. That is the highest single cost factor in airline operation. There's no way these airlines can survive. Absolutely no way. They will try to pass the bill to the passenger. For how many passengers we will be able to pay? You move from 50,000 round trip Today is about 120,000 round trip. If the airlines were to act properly, the fare will be almost 150,000 round trip. How many Nigerians will fly along that line? So until the people in authorities come to the point that they need to get these airlines back into proper operation, we will get to the point that one day we will not have any airline operating. Maybe that day we will realize what we are facing. That's the situation.
Let me bring in EMEKA UGWU-OJU. I mean, you're an economist and you're a frequent flyer. Just as a Nigerian, I'm sure you're concerned about what's happening with Nigeria's aviation sector, especially with the picture that's been painted about the dire straits that the aviation sector actually finds itself. But let me crunch the numbers just a little. 100 airlines have actually folded up in Nigeria in the last 20 years. That's amazing. Just to think that 100 airlines have actually at one time or the other existed in Nigeria, and they've all collapsed. Aviation contributes 59 billion naira to the national GDP, 159,000 jobs that sector provides, 8.5 billion naira in tax payments. Just the aviation sector alone. As an economist, what do you think are the implications to allow the aviation sector in Nigeria die out or continue to be in this kind of serious situation that defines itself? How would that impact on the economy?
I think basically it's unimaginable that we will allow the aviation sector to die, because it means a major means of transportation will not be there. Like, in other words, you can't fly. You have to go to, if you want to go to Sokoto, you go by road from Lagos to Sokoto, or by rail. But then, of course, we know that the rail routes are very limited. So it will have a very negative impact in the economy that definitely we wouldn't, any reasonable government should not allow the aviation sector to collapse.
So what then, needs to be done? I mean, the operators are asking for, a new. Wait, let me just read it again so it's clear. They're saying, as part of steps to deal with the increase in the price of aviation fuel, they're asking that the authority to levy a new fuel tax of between 25 to 40% to consumers.
Yeah, I don't really know what is meant by tax, because tax is not for the private airline. Maybe we mean an increase.
Increase in fuel price?
No. Increase in more prices that they'll levy the customers, which will now go to them because of the increase in the cost of aviation fuel. I think I've interacted with some of the players in the sector, and I think that if managed a bit differently, that the cost of the aviation fuel should be lower than what it is at the moment. In other words, it's gone up, let's say, as Chris said, from 400 to 800 or thereabout. And I think that if managed differently, it might be somewhere about 600 or so.
Managed differently, exactly in what way?
Yeah, I think the thing that because aviation fuel is not being produced in Nigeria. Virtually there's no refinery there. So it's all 100% import.
Imports.
And that the way the import is structured, that I think I wouldn't call it the middleman there, but that they are passing in more costs to them than it should have been if, for instance, they were importing it directly. But of course, they're not in the business of importing fuel. So if there's a way it could be better managed, I think they have some suggestions on their own. How feasible that is, I wouldn't know. But they think that they are paying more than they should actually pay for aviation fuel at the moment. But of course, looking at the whole thing as a Nigerian and the economy, it boils down to something that is outside the aviation sector. In the sense that when you talk about the foreign exchange rate, is an issue of demand and supply. And a lot of the demand goes for importation of refined products, especially PMS. Which shouldn't be the case if there's no subsidy or if it is deregulated. But of course, people are always afraid of addressing the issue of subsidy. They think that prices will go up. Of course, price might go up, but not as they think it should if it is properly managed. Because a lot of public transportation in Nigeria
should be discountenanced?
Removed. I mean, a lot of cost in public transportation, okay, is really diesel, which is not being subsidized. But of course, it could also be much cheaper if the infrastructure for these vehicles to use gas, which we have in abundance and which is cheaper and cleaner than diesel and PMS. So when that is tackled holistically, that means that a lot of demand for import of PMS will go down, because the actual, if you're paying the real price, okay, the actual price will discourage your, I mean, some people will park their Jeep.
Right.
And when you don't use the Jeep and use a smaller car that consumes less fuel, then it reduces the demand. Okay? And when the demand is reduced, so when that happens, the foreign exchange price will come down. Okay? So the people in the aviation sector will pay less for what they are paying for aviation fuel, which they still have to import until we're able to refine aviation fuel in Nigeria.
Let me bring in Chris ALIGBE. Chris, if you're still there, you just heard what EMEKA said. I believe you did. That the middlemen may be, part of the problem, because they're just making the cost of jet fuel, higher than it ordinarily should be. I recall that the CEO of Air Peace, alongside the Spring Alliance that was just formed recently, actually, touted the idea of government allowing the airlines import fuel directly. What's your take on that? Is that something that can solve this, fuel problem for the airlines? And do you think the middlemen are a major problem?
Well, the middlemen, in every business sector, middlemen are problems in every business sector. So it's not different in the airline subsector. So, but having said that, I wish it were the only aviation fuel that is a challenge of airlines in the country. It is not. But that is not to say that it's not a problem. It's a big problem. Like I said, the single highest cost factor in airline operation is fuel. So when it rises, it distorts the entire economics of airline operation. And so if I do not know whether cutting off the middlemen, whether the airline, in the short term, the airlines can come together to begin to import fuel. I don't know. Even what has happened yesterday, deregulation or commercialization of NNPC, I don't know the stranglehold NNPC still has on this. But it's high time, if the airlines think that this is the way they can go, it's high time they gave them that opportunity, a privilege to import. I do not believe that. But they wear the shoes, probably they know where a hot hat. But I don't think removal of middlemen for the aviation fuel will solve the problem. The collapse of airline, the collapsing situation of airlines is a much more complex situation. There are at least 6 factors leading to the present collapse of airlines. And if we don't address them holistically, if we start taking them one by one, as is a plug in and plug out, we will not get to the point of rescuing the airline. Maybe we wait until the airlines collapse. And when a few at the top echelon in government or anywhere, they are even private sector, can fly private jets. But the vast majority of people who must work that the country, so that the country should continue developing or moving ongoingly, they will have to find a place to fly. The roads are not safe. We know. The only train running It's no longer operating, not safe. The only safe means of transport, the mode of transport is the airlines. And if we don't understand it at this point in time, because people who are critically located to take these decisions are not taking it because for today they have some private jets to fly. If be a sad commentary on our nation, if we leave the airlines to collapse, the airlines are businesses and Nigerians who have invested tremendously in this subsector to keep the economy going. Well, even if you don't talk about the contribution they make to the national economy in terms of GDP, but moving people from one place to the other is a major contribution to national development. And I think
that's a point well appreciated point, really. But, you know, what exactly are those key factors, those things that need to be addressed? Which ones are the low-hanging fruits that government needs to tackle, or the operators themselves, in order not to go under completely? Help us to understand those issues and how they can be tackled from your point of view.
I have said it. I mentioned it before. My brother, I mentioned it before, my sister, that Forex is a major problem to the airlines. They are all earning Naira. None of them, only Air Peace is flying internationally, but who are those buying the tickets? They are mainly Nigerians. The tickets are in Naira, but airline operation is dense in terms of foreign exchange. I'm talking about maintenance of the aircraft. I'm talking about the parts they need to fix aircraft when an aircraft is on ground to make sure that they are flying. They don't have this Forex. They cannot get it easily. Some of them go out to buy from the black market at 600 and something against 400 and something, which is the official rate, until the people in control on the financial sector, I mean precisely the central bank and Federal Ministry of Finance, come to the point that this sector has to be provided for, so that at least we can keep on. We will not resolve that problem. Will not be resolved. That's one. Again, there are multiple charges. Deduction of the payment of. You can hear the airline say, "Look, remove this percentage you are paying here. Remove this or that." We have to look at all these things holistically in order that the airline will survive. And if needs be, I do not see why the government cannot subvent the airlines, go to Kenya Airways, go to South African Airways, go to other airlines. Let me not talk of Europe. Let me talk about Africa. They are, when they find the airlines in a state, in a dire state like we are finding ourselves, the government comes in and moves in front to assist these airlines to come, because they are part and parcel of the national economy. We can put funds in the agricultural sector. We can put funds in the textile sector. All this will generate employment. But the one that is creating employment that is ongoing, we cannot sustain it until it collapses. It's only when it collapses we begin to run around. We are used to firefighting in our country. It's sad.
Okay, let's bring it back to EMEKA here. But just to throw this in, the aviation minister actually, Hadi Sirika, said, you know, he insists that it's not just jet fuel that's a problem with the airlines. There's, you know, issue of a corporate or lack of corporate governance and sound business models. He says those are part of the issues, you know, plaguing the aviation sector. But EMEKA, I know there's one aspect that you are very concerned about, and that must be a major factor in the collapse, not just, you know, well, not collapse, the challenges the aviation sector is, you know, facing. Of course, even the fuel scarcity that we all face in Nigeria, oil theft as a major challenge. How do we tackle this menace? How bad is the issue of oil theft? We heard Tony Elumelu say not too long ago that about 90% of our oil is stolen.
I think since we are talking about aviation, not oil and gas, I wouldn't dwell exhaustively on that. But I was trying to relate the issue of foreign exchange availability and the cost of foreign exchange. I think as at the last official statement by Engineer Komolafe, the CEO of the upstream regulation sector, says for this quarter, Nigeria should be losing about $1 billion. In other words, throughout last year, the country lost about 3.1 or so billion dollars to crude oil theft. And as of this year, if you extrapolate that in a quarter, you lost about $1 billion, then it means for the year we will go in about $4 billion dollars. So what that means is, just as Chris said, availability of foreign exchange diminishes because look at the amount you're losing due to crude oil theft, which is more of an organized crime issue, as the MD of Chevron Nigeria said. It's not this little pipeline vandalization. And that was what we tackled at our last oil and gas roundtable in Port Harcourt, because we know that it doesn't have to be this way. A lot can be done to prevent crude oil theft.
Like what? What are the solutions that came up at that roundtable?
The solutions have been itemized. As I said, this is not. I won't go to that.
We can still benefit from some of the solutions preferred at that roundtable meeting.
Okay,
that's my point.
Just in terms of summary of the solutions, is that we know that if the enabling environment for organized stealing is not there, it won't happen. So, just as it was pointed out, the amount we are talking about is not something that you can even detect by technology being in place. Okay? So if you see that this thing is being stolen, then it wouldn't be stolen. But it appears that it vanishes for us, which is not real. We know that you can know what is moving out at any point in time, and you can be able to stop it. But then you have to have the political will to do so.
Is that what is missing?
Yeah, I think
the political will to tackle oil theft.
Because I was in an advantage position to know what happened when, at a point in time, we had a similar incident. Okay, something fell drastically, and then a team which included the then Minister of State for Petroleum, Dr. EMEKA and co. They moved in, and the production went back to what it was before. So it's doable. So those who did it then, you can find out, what did you do to make that happen? And now that we are facing the same situation, what do we now do? So the solution is somewhere there, once you just have the political way to get it done.
Don't worry, next time when we're talking oil and gas, we'll bring you back so you can give us these solutions, that we can go with. Chris, let me ask you very quickly before we go, in a minute, if you can, just quoting what the Aviation Minister Hadi Sirika said, that the challenge with the aviation sector is not necessarily just the fact that jet fuel is scarce and almost unavailable. He says corporate governance is lacking in the aviation sector, and there's lack of sound business models. He even cited the case of an airline that lost about $20 million in trying to set up, get aircraft. What do you have to say to that?
Well, the Honorable Minister of Aviation is correct in his observation of corporate governance. He's also correct in business model. But what we are saying is that at this point in time, the first thing is that these two factors are internal to the airlines. The factors we are facing today are external factors. If you address external factors, you can turn around to say to the airlines, address your internal factors, corporate governance and business models, and there's particularly what we have talked about in the industry over time, the owner-manager syndrome. Owner-manager syndrome is a major problem in our country, that those who own, even if they don't know how to manage, they want to manage. And those who own airlines, they are much more willing to own 100% of a not too fit corporation airline and own 50% of an airline that is doing well. But these are internal problems. I don't want to mix internal problems with external problems, because it gives a different, it confuses the situation. Let us address the external problems today so that we can address the internal problems. Even if the airlines structure their corporate governance to the point that it is sound, it will not remove the external problems. The external problems will still bring them down. So let us take out the external problems that are presently bringing the airlines down, and we can turn around and say to the airlines, physicians, heal themselves. When it comes to that, if they are collapsing because of internal problems, then they can collapse. They won't blame anybody. But today, they will not be blamed for collapsing.
All right, we'll have to say thank you so much, both of you gentlemen. EMEKA UGWU-OJU is an economist. Thank you for joining us. And Chris ALIGBE is, of course, operating the aviation sector. Well, that's it for this edition of the Arise interview. Do join us again tomorrow. From me, Ngozi Alebu, and the entire team here in Abuja. Goodbye, and thanks for watching.